Yo, what's up, what's up, what's up? Happy to be back streaming with you guys, back in my studio, not in that fun art room that we had last week. Today, I'm going to be tackling some cool modern saxophone techniques. And these are parts of my online course I have with jazz lesson videos called Modern Saxophone Techniques. We go through a lot of different kinds of things, so I'm going to talk about a lot of different kinds of things today, and how I've practiced them and how I've developed practicing them over the years of studying with people like Jerry Bergonzi, Chad Lefkowitz-Brown, Ted Baker, Lucas Pino, the list goes on, my dad, Scott Devlin. So, you know, being able to develop some of these techniques over the years, you know, with studying, with, like I said, with everybody or different people and such. These are my ways of, you know, playing the saxophone. And I think a lot of people consider these modern techniques, right? I know I do, and that's why we named the course that way. So we're just gonna go over a couple different things from the course, and you know, feel free to ask questions in the chat. I got the chat up this week, so I can hear you guys' notes and feedback. So I think the first thing that we're gonna talk about is playing, you know, over minor chorded vamps. This is a really cool way of, you know, practicing over one tonality, and something that is really modern about this is that this kind of playing fits over so many different kinds of music, right? Like last night I was playing a gig at this club, and it was for an album release show, and the album release was kind of like part R&B, mostly part R&B, like very Robert Glasper inspired, and part jazz, you know, kind of like melding those lines together. And, you know, I think it's really cool that with some of these, you know, one chord vamp tunes or one tonality tunes with some groove, you know, the stuff that we study from Coltrane and Michael Brecker and, you know, Joe Henderson, all my favorite tenor players, like, that are doing it in a jazz sense, you know, you can bring it over to that stuff too. You can bring it over to the groovy one chord vamp stuff. On wedding band gigs, I play pentatonic shifting things and one chord vamp lines. And if you play it stylistically in there, the notes don't really matter as much. And we'll talk about that as we continue this masterclass. But really, you know, I like to warm up with these kinds of things, like just thinking about one chord for a really long time and seeing where I can shift to, right? So in this exercise from the course, I have 2 bars in and 2 bars out over a G minor for me, concert F. Right? So there's my tonality. And I'll play a little bit of this phrase and see if you can hear the stepping in and out part. So I'm basically shifting up a tritone and up a half step, and I'm doing this in even amounts of bars, 2 and 2. So here, if I improvise in that style a little bit more freely, oh, oops. Maybe I'll do some fourth voicing. So. So I'm going from the tonality of G minor for me, which I'm kind of thinking of as G pentatonic. And then I switch to A flat minor pentatonic and C sharp minor pentatonic. So the tritone away and the, I guess, half step away, or the flat 9 away. And between those, going back and forth in even amounts of bars, I can kind of, you know, make up my own patterns just thinking about those tonalities. I'm not trying to play a set pattern, right? A set pattern would be more like... So I played it in each key center there, right? So that would be like one way of practicing it, but I really like the freedom or freeness of being able to just think about these tonalities and how they sound on top of the F minor chord or G chord, but not have a set pattern, because that takes a little bit away from it for me. I don't know, it takes away from the sound. I don't want it to be super clean, right? I like the kind of like the snaking in and out. It kind of disguises what you're actually playing if you don't do it in a pattern. It's good to practice patterns, you know, as a way of practicing the sound and the scales and getting them under your fingers and stuff. But when you're improvising, which is really what I'm talking about now, is more freedom involved. Just thinking about those tonalities and letting your fingers kind of make their own patterns and, you know, using your ears to connect them just by thinking about the tonalities. Right? And something I love about pentatonic scales is that they promote intervallic improvisation, which is another very modern thing, and it's something I have included in my course, right? So having that modern, you know, like that kind of Coltrane-y modern, you know, all those like kind of low note honking, if you will. You know, a lot of saxophone players, I feel like post-Coltrane definitely have that in their playing. And Eddie Harris, another guy, you know, kind of in that era before Coltrane and after. But like, you know, that's a modern, I would say a modern saxophone technique, right? Is large intervals, which is another part of my course here, a section of it. So kind of going in and out of pentatonics can have large intervals in it. And something that one of my mentors, Jerry Bergonzi, would say is that, you know, you can think about a pentatonic scale as like taking sorry, let me start that over. You can think about a pentatonic scale, but take away one note and make it a 4-note scale. So instead of it being, make it, so you're taking out D natural, the 5th. And that, I mean, if you play the same patterns, like, right? If I play that, but I take away the 5th, it makes the pattern sound completely different. Right? Sometimes he'll also do where you change one note up a half step. So if maybe instead of D, you use E flat. Just adding that one note can add a completely different color to the scale and the pattern. So ways to, you know, play these shifting techniques that we're talking about, like going up a half step, going up a tritone, start by just playing up one note in your scale to transition you to the new tonality, right? So if I'm going to A flat from G, maybe I use that E flat as an anchor point to get me to that new tonality. So I'll just introduce it. Oh, sorry. So I use that E flat as a leaning point to a new tonality. Kind of cool, right? So you can really, pentatonic scales for me are big entry points to playing this kind of modern saxophone language, right? At least that was the alleyway for me. Some people it's different. Some people it's a little bit more chromatic, like chromatic cells really bring them into that vibe. But to me, the pentatonics really helped me gain that angular modern sound of all of my favorite saxophone players. And I think using some of the patterns that we're talking about as launch pads into free improvisation. And when I say free, I mean like free inside of the time and the harmony. One of my favorite quotes, I think this was by Jerry Bergonzi again when I was studying with him. I'm pretty sure. And he, in one of my, I think this is from one of my lessons, if I'm remembering correctly. He said the goal should be, like he says his goal is to be as free as possible within the context of whatever he wants that to be, right? So if he's playing, in a sentimental mood as a ballad, in the middle of his set somewhere, he wants to still be able to play anything that comes to his mind, no matter what the note is or what the interval is or whatever, even on a ballad that's super exposed. He wants to have the command of the harmony and the horn to that point. So freedom within whatever confines you want, right? He also plays a lot of, free jazz and stuff like that. And so that's also a different definition of playing free. But I think being free in context of certain styles can be a beautiful thing to strive for. And to me, when I started shedding these pentatonics in this way, it helped me kind of gain a level of confidence with this sort of way of thinking, right? And that was just my alleyway going into it. So I like to practice these pentatonics freely as well, like I said, with patterns. I'm repeating myself a little bit, but with patterns, right? But still being able to just think about the tonalities is free. Another thing that I've developed recently is to just look at the circle of fourths and just practice one-chorded vamps, but I'm looking at different tonalities on that circle and trying to define which ones sound like I'm associating them with a sound. So like if I'm playing a G minor vamp and I go to E flat major, what does that sound like to me? And I experiment with that. If I go to B flat major, if I go to A major, if I, all these different tonalities and sounds. But the goal is to associate them so that when I'm in performance context, I can then call on those to be able to perform them better and to be able to have them on the spot like it's free, right? That's that level of freedom I'm talking about. So that goes a little bit further in than just talking about pentatonics, but that's kind of the way of thinking about them for me. Okay, so let's go into, and I'll just show you guys what my course looks like. So we have all these different chapters, under modern techniques. Everything is transcribed, which is really cool, and all these different categories have different chapters: pentatonic shifting, which we just talked about, modal phrasing, chromatic cells, false fingerings, which I'll talk about in a second, intervallic patterns on the blues. We're probably going to talk about that next. Contemporary techniques. These are a lot of things that I learned at NEC, at grad school. Resolving phrases, playing songs in a different key. We'll talk about that today too. Minor pentatonic playing, post-bop pentatonics, all this stuff, and then how we kind of group it all together. So there's like hours and hours and hours worth of video and me explaining how I practice these things in here. And then this is the transcribed version of it. So let's talk about some wide intervals on a blues here. Where are we? Coltrane changes. Here we go. Oh, wait, this is Coltrane changes. Hold on. I might have the wrong PDF up. Whoops. That's okay. Well, we're going to talk about it just by looking at iReal Pro for a second. So let's look at this here. So this is my F Blues iReal Pro version. I'm going to make myself a little smaller here. And for this section of the course, I talk about how we can, similar to pentatonics, right? we can just think about the interval of a fourth when we're practicing a blues, just opening up that part of our mind. And a good way to do this is to practice playing diatonic fourths. So I'm just playing diatonic fourths with my C major scale. C, F, D, G, E, A, F, B, G, C, A, D, and so on. Right, up and down. And that fits G7, right? And then when I go to C7, I'm really playing F major. Right? So I just play, blueses with some language like, bebop standard stuff that would help fit the changes. But when I'm trying to implement a concept, I'm just thinking about the concept of fourths on top of a blues. So I'm going to play a chorus or two of me playing a blues around, a couple choruses, and I'm just going to start adding fourths and larger. Just thinking about that. No patterns, just telling myself I'm going to play with larger intervals. 1, 2, So just telling myself, force the large intervals. It's going to force you out of your habits, and it's going to gain some of that intervallic playing. And I'm just playing diatonic, at least that's what I'm thinking about, playing diatonic major scale fourths is a big part of what I was just doing. I'm just playing like my C major scale in fourths, just randomized. Right, and so on. So just thinking about that. And sometimes the pentatonic aspect can play into this too. So playing, minor pentatonics on a dominant chord, there's a couple ones that you can choose from, but from the 5 is probably the most common. So on G7, I'm thinking D minor pentatonic. Right? That's a big interval phrase on G7. So then I'll play the blues again, thinking about minor pentatonics, but trying to still add those large intervals. 1, 2, right? So even without a backing track, just thinking about the scales that are on the page here, just adding these large intervals, right? Just trying to think about diatonic fourths, or non-diatonic fourths, but fourths. That's like my theme, right? Another part of the course that I talk about is speeding up and slowing down. This is another concept that I learned at NEC. And this is how and I get a lot of questions about how do you play better time? How do you control the time? How do you play time by yourself? How do you play time with the rhythm section? One large aspect of me having more solid time, besides listening to the records and playing along with records and playing with great rhythm sections and great drummers and listening to them, when I'm by myself in the practice room, a big aspect of that is knowing what slowing down feels like, knowing what speeding up feels like, and knowing what being down the middle feels like. So when I was studying with Billy Hart, when I was studying with Jerry Bergonzi, they would on purpose tell me to speed up and slow down when I was improvising. So again, I'd play a blues. One of my favorite things, or one of Bergonzi's favorite ones to call was Solar. And so we'd play Solar for a couple minutes, and he was telling me never to actually play the time, just play around it, you know? And I had no idea what to do at first. And what happened was I had more of a control of where I wanted my notes to line up by practicing this. So if I speed up and slow down, if I still aim for certain downbeats, it's a really cool thing, right? It sounds like I know what I'm doing if I speed up and slow down and play the downbeats, like resolve on the right spots, right? So he would have me do this on purpose, play a lot of the times I think about everything in a group of 3, and I talk about this in the course, I will speed up and slow down that group of 3 based on how I want the line to sound. So like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, right? And so I'd play with a backing track where this is constantly going. And it was easier. Actually, I might be able to, let's see if this works. I think this will. Yeah, okay. So I'm gonna do my best here to speed up and slow down as the backing track is going. I'm gonna slow this down a little bit, but I'm gonna still aim for the downbeats. And I'll talk about how when you start practicing it, and I've already touched on it, but I'll talk about it more, that it really helps you gain that command of the time. So what that helps me do is I'm always aiming for something. Because if you start a line like that where you're going to slow down, you have to know where it's going to end, or at least have an idea of where it's going to end, right? So that the idea can be solidified somehow. So for me, a really great way to do that is to just feel like I'm always aiming for like a downbeat of the 5th bar or a downbeat of the 2nd bar of a phrase, right? Even amounts of bars in the phrasing. And that kind of goes into like what modal phrasing is what I talk about in the course as well. But that speeding up and slowing down gives me so much flexibility. I'm not even thinking about the notes anymore. I'm just thinking about the phrase, which is a big part of a big part of this music in general, but specifically in relation to this course, is a big part of these modern concepts is the phrase, the length of the phrase, the kind of phrase, the melody of the phrase. That always supersedes the changes. So speeding up and slowing down and telling yourself to do that really then helps you be able to feel exactly where the time that you want to play is, right? So if I try and play right down the middle, So I experiment around with like doing 4 bars, speeding up, slowing down, 4 bars in the time, 4 bars, speeding up, slowing down, getting more free with it. So to me, that's when I feel the most free in the changes. The phrase, the rhythm is king, right? The notes don't matter nearly as much. The rhythm is absolutely king. And a lot of this course talks about that with all of the concept, whether it's false fingerings, and we'll talk about that in a second, large intervals, playing these groups of 3, speeding up, slowing down, pentatonic shifting. The phrase and the melody of that rhythmically, or sorry, the phrase and the rhythm of that phrase is way more important than the actual notes. So that's why I really like practicing this in specific, like when I'm doing patterns and stuff, but then when I'm improvising, I like it to be broad, because that helps me be more of a musician and less of a saxophonist, if that makes sense. So I have to kind of separate those two parts of my brain, because for me, being a good saxophone player means like I would just want to shred all day long, right? But that is cool, but it's not what in my opinion is the best kind of soloing and phrasing, right? I want to be able to do that, but I also really want to be able to be able to play the time in the best way possible, phrasing wise and rhythmically without having to shred all the time, right? So my music brain and my saxophone brain are kind of two different people. And this is right now I'm practicing the music part, the improvising part. And then I practice saxophone when I'm practicing my patterns and all that stuff, technique things. So modern saxophone techniques is kind of a 2-part course. Some of it is technique and how to play things. We're going to talk about false fingerings in a second. And then the other part is how to be a better modern improvising musician and how we can apply those techniques to that and practice it separately. Excuse me, because it's definitely a different part of our brain. Cool. So let's talk about false fingerings. Oh, we got love your videos along with all the Jazz Listen videos site. Oh, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thanks for being here. Thanks for joining in. Good to see everybody. If anybody wants to, put anything in the chat, I got it live here. So definitely down to talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. So let's go briefly into false fingerings. False fingerings are a concept, I can't even really tell you who was the first person to do this. I just tell you the people that I studied, that studied them and how they did that. A big one is Michael Brecker. That was kind of like my first hero of the saxophone when I was growing up in this idiom. And so he was a big part of that. And I used to watch videos of him like live at Newport, and I would zoom in on his fingers, like, what is he playing? How is he doing that? So that was like my number one. And then obviously getting more into Coltrane and Joe Henderson and Steve Grossman and Eddie Harris and all these, giants of the saxophone that had that false fingering stuff down, so well. But basically all it is it's a different fingering to get a same note as a regular fingering on the saxophone. It's a different timbre. So for instance, if I play A, but if I vent my right hand, you see it's pretty much the same note, right? I mean, it's a little bit different tuning wise, but it's got a different timbre to it. Right? Wah, 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 wah. It's almost like a wah-wah pedal, right? And what's cool is you can kind of turn the saxophone into like a rhythmic instrument and play just those notes and like it's a drum. Right? Kind of cool. So that's one of them. The palm keys on the saxophone have a really, famous kind of false fingering sound. I'm sure you've heard. So I'm basically playing D, C sharp, and C, da 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 da, but I'm playing the note, the overtone, the note, and then the overtone. So you hear it? So I'm basically overblowing G, F sharp, and F to get the note out of the actual fingering that I'm using. D, C sharp, and C. Hey Ryan, are you coming to London with the 8-Bit Big Band? I am unfortunately not on that gig, but I will be on the gig in LA that they're doing in December. So I hope to see you in LA. Sorry about the London gig. I'm not on that one. Anyway, let's keep on. Right, so that's some famous ones. Michael Brecker did that one a lot. Coltrane too. So that's one version of false fingerings, right? Is just playing the note and then the overtone matching it, right? So I'm sure you heard. So let me see if I can get my fingers better in here. Okay. Yeah, here we go. So. I gotta angle this down a little bit more. Okay. Here we go. Right? And then I just play up the scale. So it kind of has a different time feel too. It like swings, you know, so that's one part of false fingerings, right? Another part is to be able to play the overtones, like your lower notes, your spatula keys, and do kind of like what we call like, sometimes it's called overtones, like screeching or whatever. But you play an altissimo note and you go all the way down to a low note, and you on purpose don't have the low note speak, you have the overtone speak. Like, so like the upper one comes out. Like you're kind of in between the overtones a little bit. That to me is still a false fingering, right? Because you're playing a note or fingering a note that is not actually coming out, right? So you're overblowing that. But basically false fingerings and overtones kind of start to overlap when we get into this kind of style of playing. And there's lots of great musicians out there that do this. One of my favorite lines that kind of implements all of these is Train will play that rhythm, and then he'll answer. It's like a call and response. He'll answer on the bottom of the horn. Right, so and then sometimes he'll play like around the changes of impressions or a blues where he changes the notes to then fit the blues, right? So like kind of cool, right? So there's some musicality and musicianship, or what am I thinking about? There's some extra music in there. It's like, there's melody in there. That's the word I was looking for. There's some melody in this. It's not just like, again, it's not just a saxophone technique that's like shredding, woo! It's like also a really cool music. There's melody in it. There's a melody to it. There's a more gravity to it when you play it in time. Oh, we got more people. How do you practice landing nicely when speeding up and slowing down? Is it mainly a feeling? So I'm aiming for a downbeat. So like on the blues, I'm trying to go to the fourth bar. So here, let me try this again here. Where I'm on purpose. Well, this is a really cool, oh, wow, sick. I'm gonna on purpose speed up and slow down, but I'm always gonna hit the downbeat of every 4 bars. So technically the downbeat of the 5th bar is where I'm gonna stop the speeding up and slowing down and hit. that's kind of the vibe. Realized you covered it already, just caught the end of it. No problem, yeah. No worries. Definitely can ask more questions as we keep going through. But yeah, that's the goal, you know, is trying to find the ends of the phrases. So you can do every 2 bars if you want. I talk about this in the modal phrasing section of the course, but looking for 8-bar phrases, or even separating that into 4-bar phrases. You know, if you ever listen to the Coltrane Quartet, McCoy's going to hit some kind of open fifth before he pedals, you know, on the downbeat of every 5th bar and usually every 9th bar. So the 8-bar phrase and the 4-bar phrase. There's a great tune to check out called Vigil by Coltrane and Elvin Jones, and it's a blues basically, sort of, but it's a masterclass in them communicating, hitting every 8 bars together, every 4 bars together, every 12 bars, all those even amounts of bars. So it sounds like they're playing a tune, but it's really kind of an open thing. So it's very interesting to listen to and to try and practice, right, is this modal phrasing. Okay, we got more to it. Why that mouthpiece over the Boston Sax Shop you helped make? I dig both personally, but why you? So, you know, not to get too much into equipment, but I appreciate your question. We are redeveloping the Boston Sax Shop mouthpiece. So the Vantage will be redeveloped in coming soon. And so while that is being developed and stuff, I'm just playing on this Selmer mouthpiece that I really dig, and I'm very thankful that Selmer sent one to me. And this is just my sound right now, but we are developing one at Boston Sax Shop, and it'll be out hopefully for the holidays is what I'm thinking. So be on the lookout for that. Thank you for your question, and that's my answer. That's my little call and response there. But yeah, so a big part of this course is how to practice as being technically proficient on the saxophone. That's why we call it modern saxophone techniques. The technique aspect is playing them outside of the harmony and outside of your tunes. And then there's a big emphasis on the application process of putting these into playing by being a little bit more on the free side. Like still having exercises that we can use, but making it less patternistic and more free improvising, right? And free improvising within whatever context you want it to be. I'm not saying play avant-garde. If you want to do that, absolutely. I love playing avant-garde. But if you want it to be within the time and within a blues or within your wedding gigs or whatever, like you can totally do that. Yeah, absolutely, guys. I like the Selmer mouthpiece a lot, but I feel more comfy on the Vantage. Totally get it. Luckily I have access to both, just like you, and sometimes I switch it up too. I think equipment is a big part about equipment is being comfortable, whatever you're comfortable on. You don't want this to be a hindrance on your voice on the saxophone. So whatever is the most comfortable for you is probably what you should play, and you'll probably be able to develop your sound better if you're comfortable on something. So that's another thing I would recommend. Cool. So that's, basically like what I said about my course is, it's an emphasis on being able to play more modern technique stuff, pentatonic shifting. I give chromatic cell exercises, minor pentatonic lines, all this stuff to get you going on it away from the harmony. But then I really emphasize how to apply everything to the harmony. So a more in-depth look into what we're talking about today with each exercise. There's like hours of content for each chapter of the masterclass. So I don't want to forget to mention that because you're watching this stream and you're with me right now, we have a special discount code. I believe it is in the description below. Yes, it's a Modern Stream 25. You get $25 off my course. That's a big chunk. So if you want to check that out, make sure you click that link in the description so you can be a part of that discount code and take advantage of it. I think it's a great deal. And make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. Thanks for being a part of the chat. It's great to connect with you guys. I'm going to be doing these streams once a week, so tell your friends. We'll come and hang and shed. Would love to answer more questions, as we keep going. So make sure you're being active and interactive. I can't really get through the overtones. Okay, good question. So overtones is a throat position thing. We have to raise our soft palate and our tongue position to get a lot of these higher upper overtones. So the syllables I like to say are ah and e. E. That like really raises my tongue and my throat to help get those higher notes. So I'm saying E, I'm really trying to keep my throat and tongue position high. Right? Same thing goes with altissimo. When we go up into the altissimo, if I'm not vocalizing it right or using the right throat position, it's not going to come out. It just doesn't work. That's all altissimo is to me. Throat position, big part of this. Holy sheet music, you responded. That's a funny comment. I love that. Yeah, I'm looking at the chat. I'm live. We're here together. Please ask your questions away as we go. You know, this is a huge part of this is the community aspect, and you know we want to be able to communicate with you guys. But yeah, so the throat position and the the vocalization in which you use for altissimo and for overtones is a whole big part of it. Also, I will say if your reed is too soft, it's going to be a lot harder to get some of those upper overtones and altissimo out. So practice sometimes. This is what I'd like to do, either with a little bit of a stronger reed, like say if you have a 3.5 or a 3, but it feels stronger, practice with that one, or buy like a box of 5, half strength more than you would normally play, and practice on those every once in a while. It helps your air support, it helps your embouchure strength, it helps your altissimo and overtones. It's, you know, hard reeds can be a good training tool to be able to get certain sounds out. So try that as well. That's definitely a good aspect of this. But yeah, I'll let you guys maybe ask a couple more questions, and then I'm going to wrap it up here. Appreciate y'all being here. And like I said, 25 bucks off my course, man. jazzlessonvideos.com. Click that link in the description. You can use that code, ModernStream25 for $25 off. And yeah, enjoy the course, man. I think I put a lot of effort and love into it, and it's basically my, all my practice techniques I've developed in the last couple years to get to where I am today. And, I owe a lot to my teachers and mentors for the information, but it's kind of like my packaged version of it, So, yeah, thank you all for being here, and thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. And remember to go to that download link and get the video, or get the course. And, yes, same time next week. I think we're going to stick to Wednesdays at 5:30 Eastern time. So put that in your calendar. We'll be doing a different topic every week. And, if you want a certain topic, put it in the comments or the chat, and I'll look at it, and maybe we can get your topic going. And, yeah, okay, here we go. Do you ever feel like you have to switch brain modes between modern stuff and bebop? I struggle to make them connect smoothly. Great question. I do think practicing them separately is important, and like transcribing artists that are stronger in bebop or stronger rooted in that and then stronger in other aspects is good. But to fuse them together, I will say we do have a resource called 100 Modern Bebop Phrases, and there's direct examples of taking traditional harmonic, bebop, those things, and adding modern stuff like chromatic cells or pentatonic shifting. So we take 251s, 36251s, modal vamps, and we show you how to practice them, connecting the dots of modern techniques and traditional techniques. So that's kind of a cool thing. And then also we just launched a thing called Advanced Concepts on Jazz Standards, where each etude is themed to a specific concept. And then I use that concept over the whole tune, right? And I've written all these etudes for you, and I analyze them. So you can check that out as well on the Jazz Lesson Video website. But yeah, I have to practice them separately. I'll transcribe some Sonny Stitt. It's like 8 bars of rhythm changes, and then I'll transcribe 8 bars of Michael Brecker, and I'll try and fuse them together, or I'll play 4 bars of Sonny Stitt and then 4 bars of chromatic cells. Then I'll switch it up. I'll do 4 bars of melodic cells or chromatic cells, and then 4 bars of Sunday Stitt. So it's just a constant it's a constant fusing of vocabulary words, basically, or vocabulary phrases. I'll transcribe some Sunday Stitt and then latch on top some chromatic cells. I'll transcribe some Michael Brecker and latch on some Charlie Parker. It's a constant, you know, I think about them as like Lego pieces. They just kind of go into one another, you know, or puzzle pieces. You just have to kind of figure out how they go, but they all fit, right? And so practicing them separately, transcribing them separately, and then being able to fuse them together. And check out that 100 Modern Bebop Phrases book that I wrote. I wrote a lot of really great lines in there, I think, that fuse a lot of those traditional aspects with some more modern stuff. Great question. Great question. Cool. Alrighty, well, I'm going to wrap it up now. Appreciate you guys being here, and thanks for asking lots of great questions, man. This has been really, really fun. Same time next week. I'll be here Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time, streaming for 45 minutes to an hour. And I hope to see you guys there. Thanks again for joining. And Modern 25, use that Modern Stream 25, use that discount code for my course, Modern Saxophone Techniques, on jazzlessvideos.com. Kaboom. All right. I will see you guys in the next stream and the next video. Have a great rest of your day. See you later.